Hello. A couple of days ago I made a test video with Flight Simulator 2020 with my setup and with the GeForce 4090, and the results were not that good. There were some issues with frame rate, and then I actually realized a bit later that I didn't have the DLSS 3 frame generation on. That was because I didn't have one setting in Windows settings on, and I didn't have the setting even in the Flight Simulator menus. So today I thought that I'm just going to make a quick extra video here and just see how this runs with the frame generation on and compare it to the frame generation off. So what I'm just planning to do here is I'm going to get this thing airborne and head towards Manhattan just to see the performance. And currently I'm running this with the frame generation off and everything ultra except with the motion blur off.
128.125 for generic 5 Juliet, Quebec.
And just kind of small thing to mention, I came down some sort of flu, so based on the comments some of you really seem to think that my voice is intolerable even as it normally is, but now so I must apologize, it must sound even worse than that. But I guess most of you realize that English isn't my native language. Okay, so we are flying over Manhattan, and I just took the external field view just for the testing purposes here. And I would say we're getting 30 frames per second at the moment, which it really isn't bad considering that resolution I have and I'm running ultra settings, but naturally considering the setup I have, especially the new 4090, it's not that good. So next I'm going to switch the frame generation on from settings. As was to be expected, the frames basically doubled. So I was running 30 frames per second just a moment ago, and now it's hovering around 60. And the difference is considerable when I'm just kind of feeling it, watching around here and how it feels. It is really big difference. And when it comes to kind of the details and stuff like that, I don't see anything that would bother me. So I completely understand that some of you actually want to kind of go through really high fidelity tests and kind of try out that, for example, what sort of do you see any kind of issues with motion or anything like that with the frame generation. And if you want to go through that, that's perfectly okay for me. But personally, I think just kind of getting a feeling is enough. And my feeling here is that this is good enough for me. The frames are much better, and in general, the kind of the feeling, the responsiveness, everything is just really great. It's fun experience to fly around. Okay, so the New York is kind of the edge case here because, well, it's the benchmark for demanding place as far as I understand in Flight Simulator. And now I decided to come to fly around in Finland near a place called Asikkala. The reason is actually that our summer cabin is actually somewhere around here, around this region. So that was kind of just the fun thing to try out here. And when we come to this sort of places, well, the frames jump to it goes up and down a bit, but it would seem that most of the time it's hovering around 70 frames per second, which is again a bit better. And I would think that most of the flying we're going to do in any case, while places like New York or Tokyo are interesting occasionally, at least I want to do some sightseeing in, let's say, a bit easier or in a bit less crowded areas, let's say, that for the performance are a bit easier. But okay, again, I think I'm going to finish this flight by landing somewhere, and I see the Vesivehmaa airport here. I don't think I have ever visited there in real life, but I've heard that it's there, so just going to put this thing down there. Again, I think the biggest challenge here is going to be just hitting the runway dead middle, because I think that's kind of strange thing, but the default position for this plane, I guess this is some trainer or something like that, is the right seat, and I've been having really bad difficulties actually hitting the runway center with this, so it's something that really going to need some training from me. And as we get lower, I think the frames per second are to be expected to get lower. Naturally, if I would just go straight to the middle of New York skyscrapers, the frames would drop considerably. So this time results were much better. The frame generation basically doubled the frame rate as it was supposed to do, and I didn't notice anything that would bother me, so this is the setup that I'm going to be flying with. But still, it doesn't explain the major difference that I have with this setup compared to 4K resolution. Because even with 4K resolution, while this has a bit more frames to calculate, I guess sometimes 20%, I didn't check that number, but it still doesn't explain the difference, because with the 4K resolution I'm still getting over double the frame rate without the frame generation on. So I don't know what's the deal with it. One is that my CPU is a bottleneck here. I'm running Ryzen 7 5800X 3D, and based on what I checked from resource management, it doesn't utilize all the cores properly, so that might be one issue here. And then I don't know if this the multi-display settings is under experimental, so I would figure out that it hasn't yet been optimized perfectly. But in any case, it was nice to see that I could get still proper frame rates. 60 frames per second with the flight simulator with this setup is fine by me. But I hope that was kind of interesting quick view how the DLSS 3 and frame generation helps. And if you're interested in anything you see here, building the setup, playing games with it, don't forget to subscribe. So thanks for watching and see you next time.